Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year to everyone joining us here at the Florida State University College of Law Black Alumni Network, BANtv. Welcome. Thanks again. This is our third episode. My name is Attorney Marlon Hill, coming to you live here as the Communications Chair of our Black Alumni Network, under the leadership of our President, Celicia Gordon Smith. This is our first entree. We are highlighting some of our favorite, talented, brilliant alumni of the Florida State University College of Law Black Alumni Network. We started also our episodes last fall with our president, Celicia Smith. Our second episode was with attorney Sean Pittman with the Pittman Law Group. He's also the general counsel to the National Bar Association. And just returning off the New Year timeout, collaborating with some of our judges across the country, it is my pleasure to welcome one of our esteemed graduates, class of 2002, and current president of the National Bar Association, Judge Carlos Moore, coming to us live from Mississippi. I believe you're in Mississippi, Judge.
I am.
Excellent. What city are you in now?
I'm in Grenada, Mississippi, where I live.
Grenada, Mississippi. Tell us a little bit about Grenada for those folks who are unfamiliar with Mississippi.
I've lived in Grenada, Mississippi for the past 21 years, and it is North Mississippi, North Central Mississippi. We say it's the halfway spot between Memphis, Tennessee, and Jackson, Mississippi. I'm 90 miles south of Memphis and 100 miles north of Jackson. And so we are 30 miles from the Mississippi Delta. And so we're perfectly situated to service a lot of people across the Delta, the hills, south of Memphis, north of Jackson. And so we have just made it work.
Awesome. It was great to have you, man. Happy New Year. How is it going so far?
Happy New Year, man. It's going great. 22 is starting off with a lot of promise. And so we're excited about the year ahead. And we're just happy to have survived COVID and looking forward to the pandemic becoming an endemic this year.
Endemic. All prayers are up for that for sure. Well, Judge Moore, let's take us back a little bit, talk a little bit about Carlos Moore. Where did you grow up? What is Carlos Moore's personal childhood story? Tell us about Carlos.
I was born 1977 on the beautiful Mississippi Gulf Coast. I was born in Pascagoula, Mississippi, and raised in Moss Point, Mississippi. Moss Point is a majority black town of about 80% black, about 17,000 people then. And so everybody knew everyone. It was a great town to be raised in. Went to public schools there. Was born to a single mother, but she soon married my stepfather, and I was raised in a two-parent household. Had one sister there in the home, raised with me, and so raised in the church. So I have a very good spiritual base. I'm a man of faith, and I believe that God has ordained everything that He's blessed me to do over these past 44 years. So first generation college and law school student.
Awesome. What was life like in Moss Point?
It was nurturing. And of course, my dad worked at the shipyard. He was a first-class welder. My mom worked in the executive offices of the Port Authority. So middle-class upbringing. Like I say, everyone knew everyone. The teachers really taught us from an early age that we could be someone. I mean, I had a lot of successful black teachers and principals that spoke into my life early and told me that I would be somebody one day. And I had crazy enough to believe them that I would either become a doctor or lawyer or do something with my life to try to progress for black people in general and for my hometown in particular.
Wow. When did the idea, Carlos, come into your being that being a lawyer was a real prospect? Who sparked that?
Television lawyer sparked it initially. I believe I can recall at 5 or 6 telling my parents I want to become a lawyer. I used to love to watch Matlock and Perry Mason and eventually LA Law. And really when I saw Blair Underwood playing on LA Law, that spoke to me, just watching on TV, that a black man could be a successful lawyer in a big firm in Los Angeles. And then in real life, I saw in my teenage years, Janet Cochran do the trial of the century. And he represented O.J. Simpson,
right,
as he fought for his life and freedom, and he won. I mean, against all odds, he won that case for OJ, and I knew that I had some great examples to look to. Thurgood Marshall, others, and I decided I could do it as well.
So your teachers back in high school, or your friends back in high school, Carlos, how would they have described you back in the early 1980s, Carlos?
Early 1980s, I would have been still in elementary school. I think they would always have described me as studious. I've always been wanting to be the top of my class. I think I finished just a valedictorian of my sixth grade class when I left elementary. So I've always been studious. I've always been a leader. I was vice president of my sixth grade class, and I always tried to put my best foot forward. And I continued on through junior high, student vice president of junior high, and student vice president of my high school. So all of my life, from the earliest memory, I've been studious and a leader. And people would tell you that I think I was voted most likely to succeed, most intellectual, most versatile in high school my senior year. And so that's what they would say.
So achievement always, right?
Yes, always,
So
in every endeavor.
in every field of human endeavor, Carlos. So who was the spark and your part of your support system? Some people say leaders are born and some people say leaders are made. I would presume you believe it's both, right?
I do. I believe that leaders are born, but I believe they can be molded into better leaders. And it takes people speaking into your life and then having an example. I knew of one Black attorney and one Black judge in Moss Point where I grew up. And so one was a man, one was a lady. So I knew of them tangentially, knew the woman a little better. And then when I got to college at the University of South Alabama, there was a Black judge on the Board of Trustees. And he mentored me, and I actually followed him in his footsteps and went not only to his fraternity, but I also went to the law school that he went to. So he went to University of South Alabama, where I was, and then he went to Florida State Law School, and that's where I went. And so I thank God for the mentors that have played a big part in my life.
They're definitely part of the support system. What was life like at University of South Alabama?
South Alabama, we had about 12,000 students and about 1,400 Black students. And I served as the Black Student Union president for 2 years, and then vice president 1 year. So nearly 3/4 of my time at the university, I was in leadership, fighting for the issues of Black students. So that's always been something near and dear to my heart. And so there were issues. I mean, it's South Alabama. And so when I got there, they allowed for every holiday except Martin Luther King holiday, they allowed day and night classes off. And I'm nobody's second best. And so that was not good enough for me. You had to give us equality. I wanted the day and night classes off for that holiday. So we petitioned the Board of Supervisors, Board of Trustees, and we got the entire holiday off, day and night classes. So wherever I find that there was inequality or second best, we were there to fight it tooth and nail during my presidency. And so that's still one of my greatest achievements, is making sure that we got equality in that sense.
Carlos, in reading your story as you write it, it's actually happening in real time. And you've been standing up for something for quite a while. What is the one thing that in the bottom of your heart that's always burning, that you're always seeking to stand up for?
There's always an issue. We have been down for so long. We have been over in this country over 402 years now, but we still have not received equity. And so I'm constantly fighting for not only equality, but equity. And in Mississippi, there has been a saying that there's the South and then there's Mississippi. So in my state, there's always something to fight for. A few years ago, in 2016, I led an effort to bring down the Confederate emblem of our state flag. And I filed a federal lawsuit against our governor to change the state flag because I felt it was unconstitutional and subjugated us to second-class citizenship. I started receiving death threats. And so I received 5 death threats over filing that lawsuit against the governor. And I would not turn around. We went all the way to the 5th Circuit. Then we went to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Right.
And for cert, and they made the state respond.
Who did you file that lawsuit with?
We filed it in federal court, and we filed it against then Governor Phil Bryant. And so we made 14th Amendment arguments, saying it had a disparate impact. The flag with that emblem had a disparate impact on African Americans, and that it was racially motivated discrimination. And so we made a moral case and we made a legal case why that flag should come down. And the moral case won the victory in 2020, and the flag is now down.
How would you describe that moral case?
Yes, the moral case was that it was just morally reprehensible, and that if people of goodwill got together and stood together and refused to do certain things, the flag would come down sooner than later, much sooner than it would come down in the courts. And so we had proposed that athletes should refuse to play another down for Mississippi State, Ole Miss, or whatever, and then the flag would come down quickly. And so in 2020, after the George Floyd incident, athletes refused to play another down. They said, we're not doing it against one of the star athletes at Mississippi State. Refused, and others joined the refrain. The NCAA, SEC got involved, and soon the legislature had a special session in the summer of 2020, and it was down by July the 1st of 2020. It has not gone back up. We have a Magnolia flag now, a beautiful flag that represents all of us. But we had to be courageous, and I felt that God had led me to file that lawsuit and take a stand. And a lot of people got on board and let their voices be heard and took a stand, and they stood for something. And now we have a new Mississippi, a new symbol for Mississippi.
What's your process, Carlos, when you choose to stand up for something, or if you're giving advice to a young person or a law student, or even someone in the seasons of the years? What's your process for standing up for something and then seeing it through? Walk us through that.
I believe God positions us in certain arenas for certain reasons. And so I've been a judge nearly 5 years. So I got on the bench in July of 2017 for the first time in Clarksdale, the first Black judge of my type in that city. And my first order of business was to remove the Confederate flag from my courtroom, because I was not going to attempt to administer justice in front of a despicable, treacherous, racist flag. 80% of the people that would appear before me would be African Americans, and I did not feel that they would feel comfortable that they were going to get justice in front of a flag, in front of a judge that's comfortable enough dispensing justice in front of that despicable flag.
Right.
So first order of business was to remove the flag. That received waves, and I got 3 death threats from removing the flag. And everybody said it was about heritage and not about hate. But that my death threats disproved that theory. It was about hate, because why would you threaten a man's life over a piece of cloth? But nevertheless, that flag did not come back in my courtroom despite the death threats. And so I think that as a man of faith, I believe that if God brings it to me, he can see me through it. And I believe that I'm not going to leave this earth one day quicker than I'm supposed to. So I'm going to fight, and I'm going to believe, and I'm going to also take care of my business. I'm going to hire full-time security to protect my office, my staff, my family during those threats, and we were protected.
How long was that flag on your mind, though, Carlos?
It really got to the forefront of my mind after 2015, what I saw happen in South Carolina with the Confederate sympathizer killing those innocent people at Emmanuel AME Church in Charleston. And so after that, I could not ignore the flag, the symbol of hatred anymore, and I thought it had to change, and I was not going to stop until it did change.
Wow. So listen, you went to school in Mississippi, then you skipped over to Alabama. You keep going east, Carlos, and then who made the call for you to apply to Florida State? Or what choices did you have, if you want to reveal that?
Well, I went to Florida State because it offered the best fellowship, the most money. As I told you, I'm first generation college and law school, so my folks had not saved up for college and definitely hadn't saved up for law school. So I applied to Florida State University. I was dead set on going to Howard. I did get admitted to Howard, and Howard did offer me some money. It was just not as much money as Florida State's. That Virgil Hawkins Fellowship was almost unbeatable. I was also admitted to University of Mississippi School of Law, and I didn't want to go there because of them being the rebels. And then I was also admitted to Texas Southern University, Thurgood Marshall School of Law in Houston. They didn't offer any money, and it was so I went where the money was. And plus, my mentor on Florida State, so I knew of one person that had successfully matriculated there, and I thought that I would do fine there.
What was it like being a law student at Florida State University? What do you remember the most?
It was an amazing experience. I was there from 1999 to 2002. And so I was there for the Bush-Gore debacle. And so after the elections of 2020, of course, there were all the challenges, and there were some hearings and things in the Florida Supreme Court. So Tallahassee was ground zero for a lot of that. And so it was an interesting time to be in Tallahassee, the capital of Florida, during that election cycle. It was also interesting being at the football superpower school, my undergrad did not have football. So when I got to Florida State my first year of law school, I think Florida State won the national championship. So it was great going to some of the games and being a national champion my very first year. So that was exhilarating to see 80,000 people in the stand and to be with a winning team. So it was good time.
What would you highlight in the classroom in terms of your law student experience?
I love constitutional law. I loved torts, criminal procedure. I mean, to the extent you can like law school, it's an exhilarating experience. Of course, first year was like no other. It's a lot to get used to. It's a lot of more studying than anybody's used to, a different type of learning. But because of my makeup, I guess, looking back at it, I did enjoy it. I enjoyed getting to know some of my classmates. But I only wanted to do it one time, but I wouldn't want to repeat law school.
Right. So for all the law students out there, Carlos, what's the Carlos Moore formula for success in law school?
Law school is to be prepared, study before your very first day of class and keep up. Go to class, be prepared to talk about the cases, do your outlines, seek out mentors, the upperclassmen, the Black Law Students Association. Those people really, the upperclassmen really helped me out. And those on my level helped me out. We studied together. They passed down outlines from the same professors that they had and gave me advice. And that really was my core group. I made it through law school just depending on my classmates and depending on the upperclassmen, specifically those in Boston.
Right. So finished law school. I guess you took the bar exam. Did you take it in Florida, Mississippi, Alabama? Where did you?
I took it in Mississippi. During the summer between my second and third year, I married a Mississippian, someone from Grenada, and I decided to visit Ole Miss Law School my last year. So I got a job, a part-time job as a law clerk at a firm here in Grenada. After I finished, I took the bar, passed the bar, and that firm offered me an associate position. So I stayed there another 4 years, and I started my own firm in 2006. And I've had my own firm for the last almost 19 years now.
So you've been representing plaintiffs primarily. Tell us a little bit about your association with your own firm and the Cochran firm. How did that come about?
Yeah, so I started Moore Law Office in 2006, and then I changed it to Moore Law Group, I believe, in 2013. I merged with Cochran in 2019. Some people from Cochran came to me and presented me a good deal, and me and my law partner went to it. Decided to change Tucker Moore to Cochran. And it's been good. And so nearly 3 years now we've been with them. But I do civil rights. I do plaintiffs work, car accidents, trucking accidents, police brutality, employment law discrimination, criminal defense. And so it's good to have over 30 offices across the nation and over 100 partners, 150 partners across the nation that I can depend on to help me with some of these hard cases.
What kind of cases do you love? Like you want to have first choice on X type of cases. What kind of type of cases are you first chair you typically?
The first chair, I've done a lot of civil rights cases. And so while I hate police brutality cases, I'm passionate about them. And I'm passionate about trying to get justice for the families, whether it's a mysterious death in a jail case, whether it is a police brutality case where someone is injured or someone has died and I have to represent the remaining family members. I'm very passionate about that. And I'm very passionate about any time the little man is trampled upon. I want to be the vanguard for justice. I want to be the voice for justice. And anytime I can help right a wrong, I'm happy.
So are judges in Mississippi appointed or you had to run for an election? When did your transition to becoming a judge occur?
It depends on what type of judge you are. I'm a municipal judge, so I serve the cities of Clarksdale as well as the city of Grenada. And so I am appointed by the mayor and the board of commissioners in Clarksdale and the city council in Grenada. So it takes a majority vote of the governing body to appoint me. For county judges and higher, you have to be elected. So municipal judges are appointed, but county judges and higher are elected.
So what are some of your duties as a municipal judge?
As a municipal judge, I handle traffic offenses, misdemeanors, domestic protection orders. I do initial appearances and preliminaries for felonies. I set bail for individuals, issue arrest warrants, as I say, domestic protection orders, and I could put someone in jail for up to a year.
Wow. What's your most favorite defendant that appeared before your municipal chambers that is vivid in your mind?
I take interest, vivid interest in the young people, the youthful offenders, the nonviolent offenders, the first-time offenders, and I try to give them a second chance. And so I'm known for my Do Better ASAP program.
Do better ASAP.
Yes, and it's alternative sentencing accountability program where I give first-time offenders, youthful offenders, and nonviolent offenders an alternative sentence. Since I don't have a floor on what I can sentence people to, I do something creative that may better them in society. I may make them get their GED. I may make them finish high school, go to college, go to university, go to trade school, go to the fire academy, police academy, hair school, barber school, whatever it may be. I may make them write an essay.
Okay.
I had one person write an essay on the benefits of getting the vaccine, and I convinced her. She was afraid to take that vaccine at 18, but after she wrote her essay, she said she had done the research and she was convinced that the vaccine was safe, and she decided to take it. So not only did I help her better herself, I may have helped save her life. And so
she should get that published in the newspaper as an op-ed or something.
So we were pleased to do that. We've had people improve their attendance in school. I had one young man bring me proof that he was admitted to both college and university. I've had people register to vote, go vote, and then voluntarily, in addition to what I've asked them to do. So it's just been a great program, and I'm willing to do more of that because I believe in giving people second chances, and I believe in restorative justice and keeping as many people out of the system as possible, because I do believe that once you get into the system, in prison or jail, that there's a high rate of recidivism.
Right. So you have to balance the private civil rights practice and being a judge. How is that scheduled?
I'm a judge 1 day a week. I say I'm a judge every day of the week, but I sit on the bench 1 day a week.
Okay.
The other 4 days I'm primarily practicing law. So in Mississippi, if you're a part-time judge, you still can practice, but once you go to an elected judge for full-time employment, you have to give up the practice. So I guess I say I have the best of both worlds now.
How long is your term?
It's a 4-year term. So I've been reappointed. There was an election. The mayor and board got reelected in Clarksdale. And so I was reappointed to another 4-year term last July. So you serve at the same time as the people that appoint you.
You haven't had to give any commissioners or mayors tickets in front of your court?
They have not come before me so far. So that's been a good thing.
So listen, while you're practicing as a civil rights attorney and being a municipal judge, you've been very involved with our voluntary bar association. It's clear that you believe in standing up for something and tithing your time as it relates to volunteer. When did you first get involved with the National Bar Association? And did you ever think, or were you conscious about being on a path to leading the National Bar? You may have been conscious about this. So tell us about that.
Good thing you asked that, Marlon. I went to my first National Bar Association convention in the year 2000, my first year of law school. After I completed my first year of law school, John Moore, who was a fellow FSU law student, invited me to go. He had been a National Bar baby. His parents are both past presidents, and so he had grown up in the National Bar. So I went to my first convention in Washington, D.C., and just fell in love at that very moment with the National Bar Association. And it was at that first convention that I made up in my mind that I would become a future president of the National Bar. So it took me 20 years to accomplish that dream, but I did not let it go. And I had to run 3 times to win. But when I believe in something and I go after it, I'm not going to stop till I get it. I'm the first president from Mississippi in its 97-year history, and they had never had a Mississippian to become president. And I didn't really have a go-to to look to. But I made friends and alliances across the nation, and we were able to pull it off on the 3rd time.
Wow. What did you learn from losing?
I lost by 1 vote the first time. I was the favorite to win and lost by 1 vote. They told me there was some voting irregularities and everything, and I really couldn't prove
voting irregularities in the National Bar election.
In the National Bar,
like
challenging,
like voting rights kind of irregularities.
Well, I heard law students had voted. I heard that vendors had voted, and I mean it was all kind of rumors out there. I couldn't prove everything that was said, so I just accepted the defeat and decided I would come back and run again. And when I ran again, I did not hear of any voting irregularities, but I was beat handedly the second time. But hope springs eternal. The night that I lost the second time, I sent a message to all of the members and told them I would come back, and the 3rd time would be the charm.
Wow.
And in fact, I came back 4 years later, So I ran in 16, I ran in 17, then I ran in 2020. And I had more people run against me in 2020 than in the history of the NBA. We had 4 candidates running for president, and I beat them all, and I beat them all handily. And so the third time was the charm. And so if you never give up, you will eventually win.
Wow.
I've never seen it done. And usually if you lose on your second time, there's never been a person come back and win on the third time. But I do believe in God, and what God has for you is for you. And what he has for me is for me.
That's a powerful testimony, Judge Moore. So listen, tomorrow is it's a 1-year anniversary for President Biden. There's a lot happening in around the country and our nation. The National Bar Association, it's been around over 97 years. There's a lot to stand up for. You know, it's 2022. We have personal resolutions. We have organization resolutions. You know, tell us what you're focusing on as to what is our call to action on the things that we should be standing up for in 2022. Let's talk about that. I know that voting rights is on the agenda. Where's the NBA right now on the voting rights deliberations in the Senate? And what are you asking of the members and the viewers and the listeners as to where voting rights stands right now in the United States of America?
There is the fierce urgency of now about voting rights. We are demanding voting rights. We're not taking no for an answer. We believe that the Democrats are in power because blacks put them there. We put Biden and Harris in the White House. We put the senators. Georgia and some of the other states gave the Democrats a majority in the Senate. And while the National Bar Association is nonpartisan, we do believe that all votes are sacrosanct, and we got to stop this voter suppression. We have to do something to level the playing field, to advance voting rights. And so we're supporting the Freedom Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. We're supporting that, and we are demanding that the senators do what they need to do to reform the filibuster. We believe that the filibuster is a vestige of slavery and that it needs to be done away in the first part. But we're just not going to take no for an answer. And there has to be voting rights.
So before we get to the filibuster, you know, for those non-lawyers that may be watching or listening to this at a later date, what is in the act that is being voted on, and why is there pushback against it? Break it down for us.
All right. In 2013, the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act as we had known it, and it did away with the Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act, which required pre-clearance by a federal court of the Justice Department before certain former Confederate states could change voting rights laws in their states. And so it left intact Section 2, where you can sue when you think there is discrimination or disparate impact, but it gutted Section 5. And so Section 5 was the strongest section of the Voting Rights Act. And so we simply, with the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, it would restore Section 5. It would require pre-clearance before the states could willy-nilly do what they want to do, these former Confederate states. It would also be a check on some of these. It would be retroactive, I believe, to stop some of these asinine laws that's been passed recently in Georgia and in Texas. And they would have to be cleared by a 3-court panel of federal judges or the Justice Department. And we know that they would not pass muster if they had to get pre-clearance. And so that would right a lot of wrongs. I believe over 19 states have passed racially motivated restrictive voting rights laws. And so it would be a check on those laws immediately.
So as you make your phone calls as President Judge Carlos Moore to some of the legislators, what are they saying why this act is problematic? I'm trying to understand why. What's the resistance besides the obvious?
I have not heard a really logical or coherent reason. I know that some people are so stuck on tradition, and the Senate has traditionally been the most deliberate of the two bodies, and they try to protect minority rights, and that's good in a certain extent. But minority rights are being trampled upon tremendously about these restrictive voting laws across the nation, and so there has to be a check on that. Our very democracy is at stake. I mean, we've seen what happened before when people went unfettered and unchecked, and I mean, the Russians were allowed to meddle in our elections, and some people call it demagogue was elected president. And it's not, if you get away with it once, you can get away with it again, is what some people think. And so, I mean, we are living in a very precarious time, and this is not nothing to play with. I mean,
Right.
these people took an oath, a constitutional oath to protect our democracy, to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. Our very existence is at risk, and the United States, as we know it, could be no more if we don't have sufficient voting rights.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any reservations about changing the filibuster rules, short-term or long-term implications of doing that, or you think this issue is so important that we need to change the rules on that?
I have no reservations that Senate changes the rules when they want to. I mean, the Build Back Better Act just passed. They really did a great job in passing all the money for the infrastructure and to build bridges. But this is just as important and even more important than building bridges and strengthening the infrastructure of this country. I mean, I can't say it more forcefully than not that our very existence as a democracy, as a republic, is at stake if we allow elections to continue to go unfettered, people to steal elections, and people to just trample upon and go back to the Jim Crow eras of terrorizing blacks from going to the polls. I mean, they want to make it criminal to give someone a cup of water standing in a long line in the middle of the summer. That is asinine. We will not be deterred. We will go forth with all the tools at our disposal to protect the sacrosanct right to vote.
What else is on your stand up for something agenda for 2022? What are our marching orders?
We're continuing to press the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. I know some people believe it's dead, but to me, hope springs eternal, and we will not rest until some Congress in the future passes a version of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. We're for criminal justice reform in general. We are against discrimination in the immigration laws. I believe what happened at the border, the Texas border, concerning the Haitians, was very outrageous. I mean, horses and whips on these people that are fleeing a country for protections in this country, to treat them different than the Afghans who were able to get on planes and fly over here with no problems, almost just welcome with open arms. But the black people, the people of a darker hue, beat with whips. That was uncalled for. So I went down to the border, me and one of my colleagues, and we investigated. We had briefings by the Border Patrol, and we have decided the NBA is currently representing people pro bono to try to seek asylum legally in this country. So what we stand against is any kind of racism, and we stand for right, we stand for justice, we stand for equality, and we stand for equity. And if anything rears its ugly head against that, we're going to stand up against it.
You know, Judge, at the top of our conversation, you talked about your experience of fighting against hate versus heritage. And all this discussion that's happening with what we are supposed to be teaching our kids, any kid, our children, in terms of the history of the United States, and this pushback and talk about critical race theory. Where do you think that's going? And what, you know, what's the position of the NBA, and how are we going to stand up against that?
Yes, this year we have launched a law journal, a critical race law journal, and we have scholarly articles talking about the critical race theory. And I believe that we need to talk about race. I saw today, I believe in Florida, there's been some legislation that's passed, at least one house of the legislature, that says that you cannot make white people feel uncomfortable talking about race. I mean, I believe the truth is the truth. If the shoe fits, you have to wear it. I mean, I just got back from Ghana in West Africa. I went to Cape Coast and I went to those slave dungeons. I mean, you cannot run from the sordid history of people who call themselves Christians enslaving people in dungeons. I mean, I can still smell the stench over 400 years later. I mean, these dark dungeons, they couldn't bathe, they couldn't brush their teeth. They had to urinate and defecate in the dungeon in the middle of the dark. Thousands upon thousands chained in a dungeon and then sent on a slave ship across the Atlantic to come to America. And many of them didn't survive the voyage. And then, I mean, that's history. You can't run for that. And if it makes you feel uncomfortable, you need to feel uncomfortable because your ancestors did that. And so I'm calling for reparations. Why they don't want to feel uncomfortable? Because they know they owe us. We are due reparations, and you cannot have reconciliation without atonement. Reparations will be our atonement, and that's when we can have real reconciliation. You cannot offend your brother and go dance around at church. The Bible says, go to your brother and make peace with him, and then you go serve and praise God. But you can't go to God and not go to your brother and get forgiveness.
So, Judge Moore, you said hope springs eternal.
Yes.
where are we going to find this space for reconciliation and atonement? Where are we going to find this space in America?
I believe, and while you see me going to a lot of black and brown countries around the world, Africa, I've been in South America. I was just in Guyana, then I was in Ghana. I'm trying to bring blacks together across the diaspora, the Africa diaspora, because we have all been wronged, whether or not we were slaves or victims of colonialism. We have all been wrong in some way, and I believe we unite together and we demand reparations around the world. I mean, the Jews have gotten reparations, the Japanese have gotten reparations, Native Americans have gotten reparations. It's high time for blacks to stop being shy and demand what's rightfully ours. We are due reparations, and before I take my last breath, I plan to see reparations for me as well as my seed, my daughter and my daughter's daughter.
You know, from Moss Point to Accra to Salvador Bahia to where else we want to go? Kingston, Jamaica, right? It sounds as if you're making your opening arguments for your civil rights case for reparations. Are you?
I am. And in March of this year, we're hosting the first ever National Bar Associated. The National Bar Association is hosting its first ever reparations forum. We're going to have Sheila Jackson Lee, who is the proponent of the bill before Congress now, to start a commission to study reparations. She's going to be one of our keynote speakers at the forum, and we may even have a hearing and make the case. We're going to bring international and domestic experts to make the case for reparations. And so we're serious about it. We know it's old, it's due, it's past due, it's high time, and we're going to make a case for it, and we're going to show how it can be done through federal dollars, state dollars, corporate dollars, and educational dollars. But it has to be done. And it's just a matter of, it's not a matter of if in my mind, it's just a matter of when we will get reparations. Just as that flag stood in Mississippi for 126 years, but when folks came together and demanded to come down and would not give up, would not relent, we got that flag down. It's been over 400 years. We've been over here without reparations. But if we continue to join together across the world, across this country, we will get reparations come hell or high water. I'm convinced of that.
You know, Judge Carlos Moore, we're so glad to have you here in BAN. We're very proud of you at Florida State University College of Law. We're glad we gave you enough money to compete against the other law schools to have you be a 2002 graduate with us. For the viewers out there who would like to reach out to you and to support you on the things that you're standing up for, how can they reach you? How should lawyers and non-lawyers support you in your tenure that you have left, or even whatever you decide to do next?
Okay. The National Bar can be found at nationalbar.org. My theme for the year is Stand Up NBA, strong, tenacious advocacy for a new deal uplifting our people. And so we invite lawyers and non-lawyers alike to join us on the battlefield. You can become a member, auxiliary member as a non-lawyer, or a full member as a lawyer. There are different pay structures, different membership fees for the various classifications. I can be found on Twitter at @XSquireMoore. I can be found on LinkedIn under Judge Carlos Moore. I can be found on Instagram under Judge Carlos Moore. And of course, I'm on Facebook under my name, Carlos Moore. So join me, follow me on Facebook or any of the social media, and let's join hands together, lock arm in arm, and fight this battle that still has not been won. Dr. King had a dream. It's been partially realized, but we have to fight till it's fully realized. And I invite you to join us in the National Bar in these efforts. The 67,000 Black lawyers and judges across the world and in this country that I represent, and we will not stop until the victory is won. And even after my term is over, I'll continue to be on the battlefield fighting with my comrades for justice.
You know, Judge Carlos Moore, please don't go speeding through Grenada or Moss Point. You may end up in front of his municipal court once a week while he's not practicing and trying cases for civil rights and for the little guy or the little lady that he says. We want to thank you for being a part of BANtv and our conversations, wishing you the best in the rest of your term as president of the National Bar Association in its 97th year history. And we're encouraging everyone to visit nationalbar.org or send him a DM on the social media. Pretty responsive. Looking forward to see whatever you do next, Judge Moore, and wishing you the best on your next chapter and the things that we're working on for 2002: voting rights, George Floyd Act, criminal justice reform, and last but not least, if you can get it across the finish line, reparations.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us here on BANtv. Next month, we are going to be joined by attorney Conti Moore, family law attorney in Central Florida, and also one of our leaders here at the Florida State University College of Law Black Alumni Network. Please remember to join us on February 9th, 7 p.m. live right here. Drop us a note in the chat. Let us know who you would like to see next. Please keep safe, wear your mask, get the vaccine, get the booster. Do what you need to do to protect yourself and keep yourself safe and healthy this 2022.